Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is fairest of them all? This is one iconic example of scrying. Though mirror scrying doesn't quite work the way that Disney depicts it in the movie Snow White, mirror scrying has been around for a long time. It's also referred to as mirror divination, or catoptromancy, anoptromancy, or captromancy. The word scrying is derived from the Old English word descry, which means to see or to reveal. Scrying is a form of divination used to reveal unknown truths from either past or present, and for predicting future events by gazing into mainly reflective surfaces. These reflective surfaces include things like mirrors, crystal balls, a bowl of water or oil, a lake, a pond, polished metal, and polished crystals. There are other forms of scrying that don't require reflective surfaces. Fire is an excellent example of this. Wax formations are another example. Scrying has also been used for personal insight, finding missing things, and viewing multiple choice outcomes. Hey, I'm April, and we are on a witchful journey. There are only two things required in order to scry: a scrying tool and a light trance. Do you have an easy time seeing shapes in the clouds? In swirls of smoke? In the reflection of water? Maybe even in the way a flame dances? If so, it's probably safe to say that you possess second sight. The Celts, Romanis, and Native American peoples all historically are very well known for the development of their second sight. Even if it doesn't come easily to you, you can develop it and make it stronger. It's not something that can be rushed, though. It takes patience, practice, and trusting your intuition. Here are two techniques to try if you're just starting out. The first can be done during mundane activities. The next time you're in the shower, washing the dishes, or stirring some soup, or any other activity where you let your mind wander in a daydreaming sort of way. Use that daydream sort of trance to do a little scrying. Open up your senses. Open up your intuition. Put yourself into a light trance and see what comes to you. The unconscious mind receives the message that we're seeking, and in turn projects symbols and images for our conscious mind to translate. The translation is the essential part. The second technique can be done after 10 p.m., and ancient traditions say to do it with the magic of the moon, because one of the things that the moon is about is intuition and the unseen things. Choose your tool. Find a quiet, darkened spot. Light a candle. Burn some incense, with optional use of herbal assistance. And be sure to be sitting comfortably upright. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Empty your mind. Find stillness. With practice, you should find yourself in a light trance. Open your eyes enough to settle a soft gaze upon your scrying tool. Keep your mind open to whatever comes. Trust your senses. There may be sounds, smells, visions, images, tastes, physical sensations, or even something that presents itself as a thought. Pro tip: keep a notebook that is specifically meant for your scrying sessions. Record the date and anything you receive. This is especially handy for you if you begin to see a recurring theme, or for any other reason that you could potentially need it later on. Maybe an event took place that you saw days before during a session. Maybe something later on in your daily life triggers a thought about one of your sessions, and you need to go back to refresh your memory of the experience. You never know what you might need it for. Scrying is said to date back thousands of years, with roots in ancient Egypt and among the ancient Celts. There are recorded examples of scrying in other parts of the world as well. In ancient Rome, priests, referred to as speculari, gazed into polished metal mirrors to see the future and seek guidance from the gods. In ancient Egypt, a scrying mirror was used as a portal to guide souls into the afterlife, or for divining the future. The Book of the Dead describes a ritual where a mirror is used by the recently deceased to unite with their mortal soul by looking into the mirror in the afterlife, which explains why there have been mirrors found inside ancient burial tombs. These mirrors were also used in ceremonial practices to contact the dead, traditionally performed by a young boy who would act as the scryer, or medium, and interpret messages from the spirits. I'm going to give you the Egyptian method. It requires a flat dish with shallow edges, water, oil, and a candle. Sit in a darkened room with the lit candle as your source of light. Fill the dish with water and wait until it settles. Spread a thin layer of oil over the water. As the oil thins out, observe it and whatever comes to you. In ancient China, they would use obsidian mirrors to see into the soul and cleanse it, or to predict the future and improve one's luck. One popular ritual was to gaze into a mirror in a dark room to see the reflection of one's future spouse. The first recorded mention of mirror scrying was around 3000 BCE. In ancient India, it's mentioned in Hindu mythology. In ritual, scrying in a mirror would be performed to see into the past, the future, or the present, or to gain knowledge and power. In ancient Celtic traditions, mirrors or water would be used. Bodies of water were seen as portals into the other world, and if you used a body of water to scry, you could communicate with spirits and deities. The ancient Greeks were said to have used special mirrored rooms to communicate with the spirit world. They used multiple methods, though, such as a brass bowl filled with water. A man named Pausanias, who was a Greek traveler and geographer in the middle of the 2nd century, wrote, "Before the temple of Ceres at Patras, there was a fountain, separated from the temple by a wall, and there was an oracle, very truthful, not for all events, but for the sick only. The sick person let down a mirror, suspended by a thread, till its base touched the surface of the water, having first prayed to the goddess and offered incense. Then, looking into the mirror, he saw the presage of death or recovery, according as the face appeared either fresh and healthy, or of a ghastly aspect." Michel de Nostradame was a French seer and astrologer, better known as Nostradamus. He's largely responsible for bringing scrying out of the shadows in the first half of the 16th century. Nostradamus used a method that would have been familiar to the ancient Greeks, a brass bowl filled with water that he placed upon a tripod. He would gaze into the bowl until he saw what he called a slight flame out of the emptiness. He recorded all of his predictions in his work titled Les Prophéties in 1555. Some speculate that some of his predictions point to events such as the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon, Hitler, the JFK assassination, and the 9/11 attacks. Whether or not his predictions point to certain moments in history or are just vague enough to cover a number of historical events remains a topic for debate. The Yoruba peoples of Africa have priests called babalawas, who gaze into reflective surfaces or interpret patterns of thrown cowrie shells to divine messages from the gods. This is a practice that has been around since at least 300 BCE, with speculations that it dates back much further than that. Depending on the Native American tribe, either crystals, water, or smoke was and still is used to gain guidance from the spirit realm. Archaeological evidence shows that these practices are at least 2,000 years old. Scrying was popular in medieval and early modern Europe, being practiced by both pagans and Christians alike. Though the choppy mentions of Christians using mirrors for scrying was mainly to be able to identify witches. Legend has it that polished crystal balls were popularized by Romani diviners. The first thing that pops into someone's head when hearing the words crystal ball is usually a woman wearing layers and layers of beautiful fabrics, bangles, and dark eye makeup, sitting at a small table with a crystal ball sitting on an intricate base. It's a practice that's been seen in various cultures around the world, but the mystique that is attached specifically to the crystal ball has its roots in Romani diviners. though there is one interesting Englishman from the 16th century that comes to mind. He was an occultist and astronomer, among other things. One of the things he was best known for was communicating with angels through the use of a black mirror and a crystal ball. His name was John Dee. You may remember mention of his assistant, Edward Kelly, back during episode 4, when we talked about the truth behind the Blair Witch Project. The earliest use of crystals for scrying and divination dates back to the Celtic Druids of Gaul, Britain, and Ireland during the Iron Age. Now, the Iron Age wasn't one set time frame for all areas, so I'll break it down a little more for you. In some areas, the Iron Age went as far back as 1000 BCE and lasted until 550 BCE. In other areas, it was 500 BCE to 400 CE. A little side note, when I say BCE and CE, you may not recognize those terms as well as BC and AD. I've decided that I prefer BCE and CE because BCE refers to before the Common Era and CE refers to Common Era. Anyway, the Celtic Druids were pretty much wiped out by 600 CE, sadly. Much of their practices seem to be lost to time and a ravaging of pagan practices. I don't want to dig too deeply into all of that right now, so I promise we will come back to the Druids another time. In terms of the early crystal gazers, a sea green beryl was the preferred stone, which was shaped into spheres and polished. It was thought to be more magnetically charged, which meant that it was more apt to connect with the moon's psychic energies. Now, crystal balls are generally made of clear quartz, smoky quartz, black glass, obsidian, or fluorite. To use a crystal ball, you should be in a dimly lit room and use a black cloth underneath, because it cuts down on unneeded reflections. Use a candle and some incense to ease yourself into that light trance that I mentioned earlier. One big note about crystal balls, though, never leave it out in the open in the daytime. Make sure it's covered by a heavy cloth and stored away. This is important for 2 reasons. The first, you don't want anything smudging or scratching the surface of your polished crystal ball. The second, and more important reason, uncovered crystal balls have the potential to start fires if the sunlight catches it just right. I want to talk a little more about the different scrying tools and methods. We've touched on them so far, but for the most part, we haven't gone any further than that with most of them. When it comes to crystals and glass, they've been used for thousands of years by many different cultures. Though scrying is certainly not as widespread as it once was, mirrors have grown in popularity because they can be small enough to be portable. Scrying mirrors now typically have a black backing and can be either purchased or made. I've been wanting to make my own scrying mirror, and I found the perfect materials recently, so I imagine by the time you hear this episode, there will also be a how-to video and some final product pictures to check out on my socials and the YouTube channel. To make your own scrying mirror, even if you're on a budget, you'll need a picture frame and some glossy or metallic black paint. Get yourself a cheap picture frame. Either go yard sailing, check out a thrift store, a restore, or see if grandma has a picture frame that she doesn't want or use anymore. If a Wally World or dollar store are your only available options, then so be it. You probably won't want it to be too big though, especially if you want to be able to transport it. But go with whatever size and shape feels right for you. Clean and polish the frame as needed. Get out some newspaper, a drop cloth, or a piece of cardboard, and lay it out where you plan to work. Remove the glass from your frame and set your glass on your workspace. Use some window cleaner or some vinegar or rubbing alcohol to clean off any smudges, lint, and fingerprints off the glass. Allow the glass to fully dry and make sure to check for streaks. Paint one side of the glass with your black paint. You may have to do several coats and let each coat dry before applying the next one. The goal is to have it be as streak-free as possible and make sure that there is complete coverage. Once your last coat of paint is completely dry, carefully put the glass back into your frame. You want the painted side of the glass to be on the inside of the picture frame when it gets put back together. If you want to get fancy or have a custom frame for your scrying mirror, you can use some epoxy clay on the original frame to create the look you want. The reason I suggest epoxy clay is because although you have to wear gloves, it doesn't require heat to dry, and it dries to a hard plastic-like consistency. It can be sanded, painted, and carved to add finer detail if desired. It's also durable and will adhere to whatever surface material the frame is made of. I'm not going to be using epoxy clay on this particular scrying mirror, but I can guarantee that I will on the next one. When your scrying mirror is complete, wrap it in a cloth and store it in a safe spot. Some methods for mirror scrying. You can lay the mirror on a table in a dim or dark room, light a candle, and have it close by. Interpret the images that appear in the mirror. You can stand before the mirror in a dimly lit room and wait for whatever messages come to you. Or you can sit before a mirror at midnight on Halloween or Samhain to see the image of your future spouse. I also have one spell for you involving a mirror. This is the Ancestor Scrying spell. You will need a scrying mirror, a bundle of dried rosemary, sage, or whatever cleansing herb of your choice, crystals for scrying. Best ones would probably be amethyst, labradorite, and obsidian, a black candle, and an item that belonged to the ancestor you wish to contact. What you'll do is set up your mirror in a dimmed room where you won't be disturbed. Cleanse your items and space with whatever herb you chose. When you're done, be sure to place your smoke cleansing herb in a fire-safe container until it's fully extinguished. Place the crystals and the item that belonged to your ancestor in front of the mirror. Set your candle in front of the mirror in a stable, fire-safe base. The candle should be between you and the crystals and ancestor's item. Light the candle and focus on its reflection in the mirror. Relax your vision and your thoughts. Imagine that the light is a beacon for your ancestor only, and set the intention that you want guidance from your ancestor alone, with no other contact from other spirits or entities or energies. This is a more focused scrying, so it's important to firmly set that intention in place. Repeat the following incantation. Through the veil, I summon your ancestor's name this night. Please show me the way of wisdom and light, and observe anything that comes through for you. Now, as with all scrying and certain forms of divination, maybe even all divination, there are no definitive, set-in-stone interpretations of images. They may be literal, real places, real people, or an image of a boat might literally mean a boat. Or they may be more dreamlike and symbolic, or metaphorical. Some of the images may have a specific meaning to your ancestor that only you and your family know about. As before, make sure to write down the entire experience. There may be something that you saw, smelt, heard, or felt that didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time, but later on you're able to put the pieces together. Write down your initial interpretations and leave room for further interpretation and thoughts should something suddenly click after you've already written everything down. Another scrying tool is fire, whether candle flame or bonfire. It's possibly the most ancient form of scrying. There's a certain trance-inducing atmosphere to fire, and it's very intuitive. To fire scry, stare at the flames. Stare into the flames. Relax your mind and release anything in your focus that is not the flame. Watch as it flickers, flashes, and dances. Be open to seeing images. They may be clear and specific, or more like shadowy shapes. You may even hear singing or faint voices. To simply use a candle flame, light a white candle and gaze into the flame. Allow for visions, sounds, words, whatever ends up coming to you. To be more direct and focused using a candle flame, place a candle between yourself and the image that you wish to use during scrying. It can be a statue, a picture, a drawing. Situate yourself and the candle so that you gaze through or slightly over the flame at the image, and allow for whatever comes. Cloud scrying can be done to gain special knowledge. Wax can be used by dripping melted wax into water and interpreting the images or symbols that form in the wax when it hardens. Oils can be used in a variety of ways. You can pour it into a dish, rub it on the body, or coat the inside of a cup or plate with the oil, and for each of those, observe and interpret the reflected light from the oil. Smoke is another tool that can be used for scrying. For this, you'll need to get a small fire going and have some poppy seeds handy. Outside, if possible, but if all you have is a small fire-safe cauldron type deal or a fireplace, that'll work too. Always make sure you have something available to put the fire out. I know I crow about fire safety a lot, but it's nothing to be reckless with. So, get your small fire going. Toss a small handful of poppy seeds into the fire and observe the smoke. If it rises or is light, that's considered a positive response. If the smoke is dark or hangs low, that's considered a negative response. There's a lot with smoke scrying and divination, so I absolutely want to explore that in more depth in another episode. But, did you know you can scry on your eyelids? There's certainly much less flair to it than almost any other form of scrying, but it can absolutely be done. You'll want to make sure that you're not tired, because you can slip into an altered sleep state this way. And try not to use background music for this one, as the music can influence the kind of images that you receive. And finally, water. Water scrying is called hydromancy. It's done using any body of water from a lake or a pond to a bowl of water. Reflections of the moon are often incorporated into this method because of the intuitive energy of the moon. A technique that's often used is to get or make a wand that's made from hazel, pine, alder, or ash. Touch the surface of the water with your wand to create a ripple and interpret what comes to you. If you're using a bowl, you can also make sure your wand is tipped with resin or sap if you plan on moving the wand along the rim of the bowl to make resonating sounds and ripples, kind of like you would do with a singing bowl. But I've got a water scrying spell for you. It's a simple water scrying spell. And for this, you'll need a bowl or some kind of vessel, water. Moon water would add a bit of oomph to this. You'll need an essential oil, like lavender, jasmine, peppermint, or frankincense, and butterfly pea flowers. They're optional, but just FYI, infusing your water with butterfly pea flowers enhances scrying. It's associated with divination, spirit work, and dream work. So what you'll do is fill your bowl or vessel with water in a dimly lit room. Add a drop or two of the essential oil that you chose, and sit comfortably in front of your bowl. Close your eyes and ground yourself with a short meditation. Relax and focus on the question or the purpose of your scrying session, and recite the following. In water, show me what I need to see, whether unknown or unheard. That which I seek, reveal to me. And observe what comes to you. Now, I know I mentioned Obsidian a few times so far today, which is exactly why I wanted to come back around and talk some more about it. Obsidian is a pretty popular addition to crystal collections. But did you know that obsidian is actually a naturally occurring volcanic glass? It's made when lava cools so quickly that it doesn't have time to form crystals. Now, because it's volcanic glass, it's found near volcanoes. Usually it's black, but it can also be brown or green. Very rarely will you find yellow orange, red, or blue. Obsidian is high in silica and comes in somewhere between 5 and 6 on the Mohs hardness scale. What is really cool about obsidian is that each volcanic location produces a slightly different variety or form of obsidian due to whatever inclusions of impurities happen to be in the area. Fire obsidian, for example, is the rarest form of obsidian because it can almost exclusively be found in one particular location of an extinct and very weathered rhyolite dome in Oregon. Snowflake obsidian can be found worldwide, but gets its snowflake appearance from the clusters of cristobalite that grow as the obsidian cools at a slower pace. Rainbow obsidian is obsidian that has inclusions of substances like magnetite and hedenbergite, I think I pronounced that right, which end up causing a visual display known as thin film interference. Think of soap bubbles and the colors that you see on them sometimes. Another interesting thing with obsidian is that it can have a couple of different appearances. If cut in one direction, you get the jet black look. If cut in another direction, you get a glistening, smoky gray look. But it's not just obsidian itself that's interesting. The history surrounding it is pretty fascinating as well. We already know by now that black obsidian was polished to make early mirrors in certain places. We already know that John Dee used a scrying mirror and a crystal ball, but he also acquired an obsidian mirror that traveled to him in England from its origin in Mexico sometime between 1527 and 1530. The Aztec priests used obsidian mirrors to conjure visions and make prophecies. They even had a god called Tezcatlipoca, who was the god of obsidian and sorcery. His name translates to smoking mirror. But obsidian goes beyond just being used as a mystical reflective surface. The Lapita culture, a Neolithic Austronesian people, think along the lines of Taiwan, Polynesia, with possible Philippine origins. They appear to have a wide variety of uses for obsidian, and they weren't the only ones. Weapons made from obsidian date about as far back as 8,000 years, putting us roughly at 6,000 BCE. See, obsidian has the sharpest natural edges known to man. It's even sharper than surgical steel. The downside is that it can be quite brittle, but that didn't stop anyone from using it. By the late Neolithic period, which would be somewhere between 6,400 BCE to 3,500 BCE, obsidian bladelets were being manufactured and traded from Lipari to Sicily and Croatia. I found a picture that shows the reach, so I'll make sure that gets added to the socials for anyone curious about that. Obsidian was of high value at the time because it was similar to flint in the sense that it could be fractured to produce sharp blades and arrowheads. There's evidence that shows that obsidian bladelets were being used in the childbirth process, being used to cut the umbilical cord. They were also used in ritual circumcisions. Obsidian scalpels have been found in a Bronze Age settlement in Turkey that dates back before 2100 BCE, and at least one Mayan city that we know of, called Yaxchilan, seems to have used obsidian in their warfare, likely as blades. But sharp, pointy objects and mirrors aside, this volcanic glass can also be used spiritually, to shield from negative energies, as a protective amulet, and for enhancing self-reflection and truth-seeking. Obsidian is associated with the root chakra because of its powerful grounding frequencies. It's also associated with the planet Saturn because they share so many properties and energies, such as grounding, stability, absorbing and transforming negative energies, and discipline. Obsidian's other properties include protection, releasing trapped emotions, clearing, truth, stress relief, abundance, intuition, and it helps bring out creative energies. There are a number of crystals that obsidian can be paired with, depending on what you need. Obsidian and tiger's eye can be used for grounding, protection, courage, and strength. When paired with moldavite, it can be used for clearing energies and promoting transformative healing. If you use obsidian, jet, and smoky quartz, you have added grounding effects. Obsidian and clear quartz are good for cleansing and purifying. If you combine obsidian and black tourmaline, you have added protection against negative energy. For root chakra balance, you want to use obsidian and red jasper. If you combine obsidian and rose quartz, you will get emotional recovery, replenishing energy, and dreamless sleep. I can back up the dreamless sleep because I often use obsidian and rose quartz by my bed for the nights that I do not want to have any dreams that I remember at all. You can use obsidian and citrine for clearing any obstacles in your path. And if you want spiritual awakening, finding inner peace and wisdom, you can use obsidian and amethyst. Obsidian is great for use during meditations, dream work, shadow work, and for overall promoting your emotional well-being. It's also great to keep nearby when you sit down to do some journaling, since it helps release trapped emotions. When it comes to cleansing your obsidian, you can either smoke cleanse it, use a singing bowl, set it on a piece of selenite to cleanse and charge at the same time, or set it out to cleanse and charge by the moonlight. You can also use sunlight, but limit it to only a couple of hours. Side note, similar to the episode on grounding techniques in Tiger's Eye, do not immerse your obsidian in water for long periods of time. I generally won't suggest cleansing any of your crystals, natural glass, minerals, stones, whatever, in water because of the potential for damage over time. With obsidian, long-term exposure to water will eventually rehydrate it, and it will become cloudy and eventually devitrify, which leads to the formation of secondary crystals. While visual effects of this can take years, anywhere from decades to millennia depending on the circumstances, there's still minute damage that can be done within your lifetime. Think of it this way. Crystals, volcanic glass, minerals, what have you, all included, aren't possessions. They're simply in your care until they're not. They will very likely remain long after you're gone. Not to sound all dark and depressing. My point is, just take care of them. Before we go, let's pivot and see what the Oracle cards have for us today. This deck is called the Star Codes Astro Oracle, made by Heather Roan Robbins. I love how colorful these cards are. Today's card is... Actually, we ended up with two cards. The first is Transits, Climate. Transitions, shifting, movement. This is a changing states card. In astrology, a transiting planet kind of acts like a guest in your house. If they're in your front room, that's where a lot of your focus goes. It's like a motion sensor light. The guest walks into the room, and the lights are activated. So going back to astrology, let's say there's a moving planet that is transitioning your Mars. It'll activate your flight or fight mode and your warrior nature. And let's say it's transiting your Venus. It influences love, beauty, relationships, and your values. This card is telling us that the situation is in flux. There are wild cards. You have no control over what or who those cards are, their intensity of the energies, or their behaviors. You do have control over how you react and respond to these transits, these shifts. Keep your ears perked, your eyes open, stay alert, and be ready to roll when necessary. Our second card is Progressions, Journey. This is also movement, but in the more sweeping, vast, soul kind of movement. Like, transits are a bit like getting zapped by static electricity from your blanket in the winter. This is more like a lightning storm in terms of the level of energy involved. We're being asked to also zoom out. The situation might feel predetermined because of all the transits that are happening, but there isn't anything that's set in stone just yet. We choose where we go, how to respond, the level of interaction that we want to engage in. With these two cards, we need to be aware of the more daily life things that are happening, as well as the much larger picture. We can't focus on just one or the other. It's kind of like walking down a crowded street. If you focus too much on the ground right in front of you, you probably won't end up where you want to be, because it's easy to get lost when you spend the whole time just avoiding cracks in the sidewalk or avoiding running into other people. But on the other hand, if you're too focused on the front door of a building 400 yards away, you could trip and sprain your ankle or come upon obstacles that you didn't realize were going to get in the way until you ran into them. Stay focused. Stay alert. Stay aware. and don't forget to keep your end goal in sight. Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss out on future episodes, hit those like and follow buttons. Next time, we're going to dip our toes into Celtic paganism. I can't wait to share with you. For now, you can find me on Facebook, Witchful Journey Podcast, on Instagram at _witchful_journey, on BlueSky at awitchfuljourney.bsky.social, and on YouTube, A Witchful Journey. I enjoy hearing from listeners, so if you pop in, say hi, leave me a rating, or if you're really feeling it, a review. If you'd like to contribute, donate, buy my next podcast coffee, whatever you want to call it, check out A Witchful Journey on ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. You can also send stories or experiences to awitchfuljourney@gmail.com. I'm April, and we are on a witchful journey.